gonna say, you're kind of like, you're very strong. I don't know if I would want to know. No, I know.
We are live streaming. Well, it's just on a live show. We won't unmute and go to you guys until you're ready to talk.
All right, we're ready when you are. Okay, so we just want to take a moment to thank you for coming out this evening to hear about our Dartmouth Public Schools 2024 through 2029 strategic plan. We appreciate those of you who have come out this evening. Thank you so much. We know that we have some viewers who are watching from home or maybe from their cars or maybe from the sports field. So we know that we have viewership out there, and we appreciate that, and we also appreciate DCTV for taking the time to tape this for us so that the public can watch it. If folks are busy this evening, they can watch it at their leisure. And so we're going to start off by, do I have the? Oh, you do? Okay. So we're going to talk about what is our why. Why is strategic planning important to the community in general, and certainly the school community? And so what a strategic plan allows us to do is to create a shared vision and common purpose for every member of our One Dartmouth community. It identifies our district's mission, core values, goals, and underlying theory of action. So you're going to hear us talk about that tonight, and we're going to do the best that we can for our families and community members to sort of not talk edu-speak to you and sort of break it down in language that is common, and so that you understand that we're not using our educational, I don't like to call it jargon, but we have lots of acronyms in the field of education. And so what a strategic plan does do for us, it does help to guide us when making important decisions. It helps us to identify what our areas of need are, how we're committing our resources, and those resources include human resources. The most important resource that we have, of course, are our human resources, our physical resources, which is, again, our physical space that our students are learning in, that our teachers are teaching in, that our educators work in every day, and, of course, how important it is to have the financial foundation to be able to support us in this work. So basically what this does is serves as a roadmap for the direction of the school district and the role that the district plays in the community at large. And so here what you see is something that's been developed over a number of years, and this is the 5 C's of our Portrait of a Learner. Lots of folks were involved in the development of a Portrait of a Learner, and this predates my coming in as superintendent here in Dartmouth, and I was really grateful that folks had engaged in this work over at least a year-long process where, much like the district strategic plan itself, folks worked with the community. They did seek community input. They did seek input from our school leaders, our educators, members of the community at large to help to inform what the 5 C's of our Portrait of a Learner are. And what you're going to see is in our strategic plan how we are embedding what we see as the importance of, as you see 5 C's, the critical thinker and problem solver, communicator, continuous learner, contributing citizen, and collaborator, and how all of those things work together and how they worked together to help to inform us as we really did dig into the work of developing our overall strategic plan. And so, as I said, as you look at the timeline of the work that's been done here, it's happened over a number of years. So for me, as a new superintendent, I'm not new anymore, so I guess I have to stop saying that. I'm in my second year here. But this work, it seems to me like sometimes I have to step back and go, wow, we got a lot accomplished. But what I want to assure you of is that the work that we did accomplish wasn't done in haste. We did take our time. Having the Portrait of a Learner in place really did help to accelerate the work that we were able to do as we moved through the process of strategic planning. And you can see that this is an overall timeline of the work that we did, leading to here where you see the strategic plan. It says implemented, monitored, adjusted, and regularly reported out on. So that's where we're going. Everything else is sort of where we got there. So one of, I think, the most important considerations regarding the development of our strategic plan was to create a plan that was representative of the entire school community and the community at large, and we did seek input. We did that in many ways, not only with the strategic planning team itself, which was made up of 37 people. I think we have a slide that actually names who those folks are, but to give you an idea, it was certainly school-based people. We had teachers, we had school leaders, we had folks from the select board, from the finance committee, we had representation from our DEA, we had parents, we had ESPs. So we really worked hard to make sure that we had broad representation, and at the same time, even though you look at the folks that were sort of in the room as we developed that strategic plan, the input that we received from others was equally weighted as we went through our planning process. So you see, as far as stakeholder input, I already mentioned Portrait of a Learner. We did surveys. Hopefully you participated in taking some of those surveys and submitting them to us, because that was data that we truly used as we went through this planning process. We went on a listening tour, and what I mean by that is that this team of folks, who I will give a chance to introduce themselves in a second, but this team of people, we were all out. We went to PTO meetings, we were at faculty meetings, we were out just in the community talking to folks, and a lot of those informal conversations, discussions, those are as important as surveys, those are as important as formal meetings. Informal kind of data can really help us to consider all viewpoints as we engage in the work of planning, and knowing how important all voices are in informing the way our plan looks. If you look at this chair, you see that there's a light on it, and one of the most important things and one of our norms during our district strategic planning with our district strategic planning team is that we respected the voice of the empty seat, and there is sort of like that light shining on who's not here in the room and whose voice do we need to ensure that we're considering as we put this plan not only into writing, but more importantly, how we enact the plan itself. So here you have the summary of the strategic planning process. As I said, this has been an ongoing process. I'm so excited to see that the district was so prepared to engage in this work, because that's what made it, I wouldn't say easy. It wasn't easy work that we did together. It was important work, and at times there was real struggle time, and I mean struggle time in a healthy way, where there was healthy dialogue about input and listening to others' viewpoints about what was actually going to find its way into the strategic plan that, again, we're going to give you an overview of this evening. So you see, phase 1 is about building the foundation, phase 2, building the plan, and as excited as we are that we've built the plan, the most important work lies in phase 3, which is about the implementation of the plan. Again, I go back to being excited that Dartmouth was so primed for this work, because a lot of the implementation, not a lot of, but pieces of the implementation of this plan have already started. So we didn't just sit back and wait for the plan to be put to paper before we started to enact some of what we knew was coming in terms of the school committee, thankfully, and I'm very grateful. I see we have Mary Beckwith from the school committee here this evening. Thank you for coming, Mary. Such great support from our school committee in helping to shape the direction of the plan and then to support us in this work as we move forward. And so mission statement, where we wanted to talk for a minute to you about what is an actual mission statement. And if you've been involved in developing mission statements, what you know is that they can be, when I talk about struggle time, I want to say we spent a lot of struggle time in mission, vision, and core values. Not because we didn't all agree on mission, vision, and core values, but because we wanted to get it right. And so here, when you think about a mission statement, what you're looking for is, what is it that we do? And so here in this mission statement, do you see what is it that we do? Who benefits from our work? And again, we want that to exist in our mission statement and for folks to readily be able to identify who those people are. And then what are the results of our work? And so for our mission statement, again, when I talk about the data that was collected and considered as this mission statement was developed, I can't tell you how important that work was. And just to read through what because I can't see it on my screen because it's too small. Together, and I know you can read, but I just love actually saying the mission statement, because I think that when you have a mission statement, you have to have some passion for the words. So together with students, staff, families, and community, we are committed to cultivating a safe, supportive, and inclusive learning environment that empowers all students to become compassionate, informed, and contributing members of our local and global community. And I would say that there was a lot of talk, and this is one thing I think, again, you folks in Dartmouth should be proud of. There's a lot of focus on how the school district educates its youth, and in turn, how that youth become contributing citizens to the community that they've grown up in and that they're educated in. And so next we have our core values. And again, when you think about what do core values tell us, the core values should be something that remain constant, that they don't change according to what's going on in the world. They're something that's consistent and that we can rely on, and that the values provide the foundation of our work, and they influence how we conduct ourselves and how we engage with others. I'm particularly proud of the entire plan, but this right here, it meant so much to folks because you can see the acronym PRIDE there, and something that came through loud and clear, again, when you go back to focus groups, surveys, to conversations that we have, whether informal, formally, whether it's at the football game, the soccer game, the volleyball game, the band performances, the cheerleaders, all of those just all of the things that the students, amazing sort of things that students are involved in across the school district at the elementary level. I don't know if any of you are at the Quinn, but I saw photos from the Quinn School trunk or treat. Like when you see the outpouring of community pride, it was on full display there and so creative. So we look at PRIDE as the acronym, again, comes through loud and clear here in this community, and it's something that we want to highlight. So through this, we talked about personal excellence and responsibility, respect for self and others, inclusivity, equity, and belonging, diverse opportunities in student agency. And this was a big deal for the 3 students. I don't know if I mentioned that with the district strategic plan, but we also had 3 high school students who were part of our district strategic plan. And that voice and choice piece was really important to them, that not only exists sort of like as a as an initiative, but as something that we are highlighting as part of the core values that we have for our students. And then finally, also ethical commitments. And what I say to everybody about core values is you as a community, as family members, as teachers, as students should be able to speak. We should be able to speak to any one of those and talk about how we're committed to that core value through the actions that we take in our work every day. So inclusivity, equity, and belonging, how is the school district engaged in that work? And we can talk about that through things like the work that we're doing around Project 351, which is a program, well, hopefully that we're going to hear tomorrow, but certainly last year we had a group of middle schoolers and some high school students who were really engaged in that work, which was focused on inclusivity, equity, and belonging. So that's one way, and we should be able to talk about where that particular work exists in our district. Next, we have our vision statement. And again, I know I sound like a broken record, but like I'm really proud of this one too, and I really am just particularly proud of the work that folks put into this and the wordsmithing that went into it, not wordsmithing to be picky, but wordsmithing to make sure that we got it right. And because what a vision statement represents is an aspirational description of what an organization would like to achieve or accomplish in the midterm or long-term future. It's intended to serve as a guide for choosing current and future courses of action. It's intended to be our compass, and I'm sure you've heard this term, or our North Star. It should be brief, it's a concise statement, but it should exemplify the district's vision for those that it serves. And when you look at our vision statement, so One Dartmouth, it's One Dartmouth, united as One Dartmouth, we are invested in the ongoing improvement of our community. Dartmouth Public Schools proudly offers unparalleled opportunities for educational excellence and success for current and future generations. And again, you see that generational connection because, again, something that was important in everyone that we talked to came through all our surveys, through all of the interactions that we had. The other piece of this that I'll point out to you is that I mentioned that we had town folks involved with the work that we were doing. And if you look at the first part of this statement, united as One Dartmouth, we are invested in the ongoing improvement of our community. That pertains to every department within the community of Dartmouth. The second part of that statement talks about what the commitment of the school district is. And so one of the things that we're working on, and that came up through Select Board and Finance Committee, is how we can all sort of rally around the first part of that statement, and that each individual department, and I know that I talked to Amy DiPietro at the Council on Aging, and Dina St. Pierre at the Director of Library, and they talked about ways in which they're going to use this statement to help kind of shape the vision for their individual departments and the work that they're doing. And we're spending a lot of time as we talk about community engagement and how we're interacting and intersecting with all departments in the Dartmouth community. And so next we have our theory of action. With a theory of action, basically what you see here in this theory of action, if and when, which will be soon, within the next couple of weeks, you'll see the entire district strategic plan published to both the website, and it will be on the town website, so you'll have access to the detailed plan. But what this theory of action does for folks is it summarizes, this is basically your entire strategic plan in one paragraph, minus all the work that goes into it, right? Meaning the work that goes on behind to support things like ensure an aligned curriculum. You're going to hear us talk about ensuring an aligned curriculum. You're going to hear us, which is our focus area 1. You'll hear us talk about support a sense of belonging and social emotional well-being. That's focus area 2. You'll hear us talk about strengthening the community and family engagement. That's focus area 3. You will hear us talk about how we're working toward creating a joint vision to address funding and facility needs. And then what that means in its totality is then what will happen. And there you see our statement is that we'll cultivate a safe, supportive, and inclusive learning environment that empowers all students to become compassionate, informed, and contributing members of our local and global community. And so, again, that's sort of the summary of it, and now we're going to talk through what our action plan layout looks like, and because I didn't do this at the beginning, I'm just going to take 1 second before we do that and give everybody a chance to introduce themselves. And or else we can just wait till it's your turn.
No. Do you want to introduce the two gentlemen on your left first?
Hi, everyone. Thank you for being here tonight and for watching online. I'm Jim Kiley. I am Assistant Superintendent of Finance and Operations.
I need no introduction, but my name is Jonathan Galish. I'm the Director of Technology for the district.
I'm Ross Tebow. I'm the Director of Teaching and Learning for Secondary Education in Dartmouth Public Schools, so grades 6 through 12.
Hi, I'm Katie Paveo. I am the Director of Teaching and Learning at the Pre-K to 5.
Lori Dinicio, Director of Student Services.
Kim Redlawn, Assistant Director of Student Services.
Dr. Tebow's going to take over and talk through some of the logistics of our plan.
And I'm relying here on Mr. Galishaw's ability to advance the slide only once, as opposed to the school committee presentation, where we kept doing it twice. So our, as Dr. Saber-McGuire spoke about, the plan gives you kind of a high-level overview. It goes through our mission, our core values, our theory of action and that. But at the heart of this plan is a lot of hard work that our educators are committed to and will be committed to doing over the next 5 years. And so we think it's very important that our strategic plan lay out that work for the community to see in detail. And so what you have as part of the district strategic plan is a detailed action plan, and we think it's important that we all build some common vocabulary around different aspects of that detailed action plan. So at the highest level, you'll see a focus area. This is a broad umbrella where a series of action steps, a series of initiatives, and an objective will all fall under that one focus area. So just below the focus area level, you'll see the objective. Again, this is the goal of that particular focus area. It's what we're hoping to achieve. Underlying that objective is our strategic initiatives. These are the strategies that we'll employ to hopefully achieve the objective that's laid out under each of the 4 focus areas. And then at the most granular level, we have our action steps. These are concrete, specific actions that educators across our district will take in order to move us closer to achieving the objective. Below that, or on the side of that, you can see a proposed timeline is laid out. And one of the things, when you do dig into our detailed action plan, you'll notice that for many of these initiatives, it will say things like, or for many of these action steps, rather, it will say ongoing from fall of 2024 through spring of 2029. And that's because a lot of these action steps are the important work that our school department needs to engage in on a daily basis. Where there are specific actions that will be taken, like one time you'll see we try to identify what the proposed timeline for achieving those or completing those actions are. We also have a column here that's led by, and we want to stress this, just as the plan was developed with the input of 36 different community members, the work in this plan will it will only be achieved if we're all working collaboratively and together. And so this column here where it says led by is not meant to be all encompassing. It's really just identifying who are the folks who are responsible for facilitating the work and ultimately at the end of the day are responsible for making sure these action steps are taken. And so you'll see, we identify folks who are positions who are responsible for leading the work. And then finally on this detailed action plan, the final column is identified as measures of success. We want to be fully transparent with our community. We think it's important that we report out and share how we're doing in achieving the objectives of our strategic plan. And so we identify multiple measures of success because with many of these action steps, there are multiple data points or multiple outcomes that will allow the community to determine whether or not we are ultimately successful in achieving our stated objectives. And so the plan is outlined by focus areas. There are 4 focus areas. The first one is teaching and learning. And under teaching, and each of these we'll talk a little bit more in detail in just a second, but under teaching and learning, we're really, our main objective here is to support the varied needs of our students and staff through best practices while promoting innovation in a horizontally and vertically aligned curriculum. And my colleague, Katie, is going to explain in concrete terms what that means. What's horizontal and vertical alignment? It's exciting stuff, I can assure you of that. Focus area 2 is around safe and supportive schools, and our objective here is to ensure that all students and staff feel a sense of belonging and social emotional well-being in school through the use of culturally and intellectually affirming practices. Focus area 3 is around family and community engagement. And here we're looking to strengthen interactions and strengthen existing partnerships, but also to foster and build new partnerships as well so that we can really achieve that vision of a unified One Dartmouth community. And finally, focus area 4, budget and capital improvements. Without strong support from the community in this area, it would be impossible to achieve the objectives and vision that are laid out in the strategic plan. So Mr. Kiley will speak more about focus area 4 in just a bit.
Thank you, Dr. Tebow. And thank you for everyone who has come out to hear about our strategic plan this evening. I'd like to take this opportunity to talk about our first and obviously my favorite focus area, which is teaching and learning. Our first initiative under teaching and learning is one that you've probably heard Dr. Tebow and I talk a lot about over the past 3 years. And it's also it was clearly an issue of importance with the community as we did an analysis of our stakeholder data. And that's ensuring a vertically and horizontally aligned curriculum and instructional materials. And maybe that's not what people said when they were talking about it, but really what an aligned curriculum means. When we talk about horizontal alignment, it means that regardless of which elementary school, for example, you go to, if you are a 3rd grade student, you should be experiencing a similar experience in 3rd grade. Instructionally, with the materials that we're using and the experiences that kids are having. Now, that doesn't mean that every classroom is going to be a cookie cutter of itself. Our teachers create the magic and the relationships that they have with their students. But what our students are learning about should be, and really what it comes down to is an equitable experience for students across a grade level, across a discipline. So that's our horizontal alignment. When we talk about vertical alignment, what we're talking about is our ability to build on what we've learned from grade to create a cohesive experience for students. So, I think sometimes we think about, as a 4th grade teacher, I was a steward of my students for 4th grade. My goal was really to build on what the kids had learned from K to 3 and get them ready for what they were going to learn in 5th grade and beyond. And so when we talk about a vertical alignment, we're talking about creating that sort of cohesive and smooth path for our students so that they can continually build on what they're learning. When we talk about learning, I think we tend to naturally think about learning for our students, But of equal importance is our second initiative, which is designing professional learning opportunities that are relevant for our staff, assuring that we are keeping them up to date, assuring that we are engaged in research, and making sure that we are giving our staff members as much opportunity to learn and to grow as we are with our students. And our last initiative under teaching and learning has to do with reimagining educational pathways and opportunities for students. And what we're talking about is designing opportunities so all students can experience success in Dartmouth Public Schools. So beyond our traditional pathways, beyond what we maybe have thought of as the traditional trajectory for students, exploring additional pathways so that all students can find their sense of belonging and their sense of success as a member of Dartmouth Public Schools. So you might think that as we went across linearly, the next step may be to talk about action steps, but we're actually going to kind of go in a backwards design model and talk about what our measures of success are. So we know what our initiatives are, and as Dr. Thibault said earlier, this is not our entire plan. This is just a few of our measures of success that we wanted to elevate and talk about this evening. One of those, when we talked about that aligned curriculum, has to do with creating and publishing a curriculum review cycle. And so when we talked about, with educators trying to keep active and on top of new things, it's important that we review and revise our curriculum on a cyclical basis. It's important because we need to assure that as standards change, as knowledge changes, as technology changes, as we learn more, that we are up to date. But also in a fiscally, when we're talking about budget, we have to make sure that we are making a plan so that we're not in a position where we have to replace a lot of things at once. High quality instructional materials are not cheap. And if we find ourselves in a position where we're looking at replacing things all at one time, it doesn't make sense. It also doesn't make sense for educators who are trying to implement multiple things at a time. For our students and for our educators, having a long-range plan for revision and replacement when necessary is really a critical piece to that vertical and horizontal alignment. To that end, also having a published curriculum that is rich with high-quality research-based instructional materials that as parents, you could say, I'm not really sure, what does my child learn about as a third grader in science? You can go on our website, you can look at our curriculum, you can look at the things that your student is learning about. That shouldn't be done in isolation, that shouldn't be done in a vacuum. The other goal is that you see the connections to what they learned in second grade, to what they'll learn in fourth grade, and you can start to see that through line and that alignment. And finally, a published data dashboard to consistently report on the progress and achievement within our district and for the broader community. And Dr. Thibault talked a lot about that before, the accountability piece and the measurement of it's great to put things in the hands of our students. If we don't measure if they're working, if we don't measure how our students are doing, we don't know if we need to revise, we don't know if we need to replace. So that data we're making those data-informed decisions, again, not in a vacuum, not in isolation, but sharing with the community the successes of our students in the areas for growth. So then the key action steps answer the question, if this is where we want to be, how do we get there? And so we have to look at that. Having a published curriculum review cycle involves developing and implementing it. And so with the work of a curriculum team, with the work of our educators, with the work of Mr. Kiley and Dr. Stephen McGuire, it's looking at our directors, looking at our district as a whole, and mapping out for the future the revision and replacement process for our curricular materials. Involved in that is the identification and some cases piloting and implementation of new high-quality research-based instructional materials. You'll hear us talk a lot about there's a literacy pilot going on at the elementary level, there's a math pilot going on at the secondary level, looking and making sure that we are putting the best materials in our teachers' hands and in our students' hands to help them grow and be the best, to reach their maximum potential. And finally, identifying and developing that data dashboard in a way that makes sense for people to understand and to regularly report on those metrics of how our students are doing and how they're growing. That's a lot of information about teaching and learning. And I'm going to hand it off to Mrs. Dionisio, who will talk to you about safe and supportive schools.
Thank you, Mrs. Paveo.
So some of the initiatives in safe and supportive schools are around building the capacity of all students and staff to support social emotional wellness. We know that social emotional wellness is sort of key to kids being available to learn. And frankly, the kids we're getting now, the kids who are walking through our doors need different things than the kids that walked through our doors even 5 years ago. So do we as a district have the resources and the knowledge to support the needs of those students? Enhancing the sense of pride and culture that embraces One Dartmouth. So One Dartmouth is at the heart of this plan. It's probably on every slide in the slideshow. We have great t-shirts that say One Dartmouth. The sign outside says One Dartmouth, but are we living it? Are we a school system instead of a system of schools? Did I get that right? Oh, it was tricky. So are we connected? And, when Katie talks about it, she talks about it through curriculum, but are we connected in the programs we're offering, and is there equity among the schools? That's really what this particular initiative is looking at. That we're employing culturally, emotionally, intellectually affirming practices throughout the district. So what does that mean? Again, that means our world is changing, and what we know about kids and learning and brains has grown quite a bit. So are we using what we have learned about teaching and learning to teach our kids? Are we meeting their needs? Are we meeting them where they are? Expanding enrichment before and after school programming to all levels. Currently, the middle school and high school have quite robust after-school programmings, but the elementary school doesn't have anything. And in order to engage kids and really have that sense of belonging for all students, we need to provide opportunities outside of the classroom. So that initiative is really focused on that. And then aligning our safety practices across the district. So what will this look like? This might look like professional development to make sure that all of our educators feel like they can support the students in front of them. It might be looking at our staffing to see where the needs are in order to support the students that are walking through our doors in 2025 to 2029. Living out that One Dartmouth theme, we might, which is already happening, have the 8th graders come to the high school to do a project with the TV production, or it might be a 3rd grade classroom from DeMello Zooming with a 3rd grade classroom from Quinn to work on a project. Again, just this presenting opportunities for everyone to be engaged and to feel like they are part of something. Again, the before and after school programming, we need to find a stable and consistent financial source for that. So that's really the work behind that initiative. And finally, aligning the safety practices. Mr. Galashaw is going to talk about that one.
Thank you, Lori. There's an element to safety and security that's a physical element for our schools that complements the social-emotional safety and support of schools. And that's things like phone systems and intercoms, walkie-talkies, door security, and security cameras. And that's where technology comes in. There's a lot of technology that surrounds the schools to ensure the safety and security of our staff and students. So there's a physical element that comes with that. Did you want to take it back from there or take it from here? Okay, thank you. I'll keep going then. So that leads to our focus area number 3, since technology, which is part of all of these, but we talk about safety and security. But in regards to communication and reaching out to communities, I think technology is a great tool for that. Right now, some of the initiatives we're looking at is developing and implementing a district-wide communication plan so that people understand that. And also strengthening those relationships of all parties throughout the district, the stakeholders in our community for our schools. Some of the key measurements of success when doing that is actually conducting the survey for family and community engagement, publishing the said communication plan, and also increasing the meetings that we have, that we've had some to date, fire and police, DCTV, town officers, and always giving that One Dartmouth communication throughout the town. And with the communication plan and some of the tools for communication, we can give the message back to the stakeholders, yourself and the community. You might understand what is going on in our schools. Those are the key action steps that we'll take: conducting the survey, putting the team together, a communications team. We're also implementing things like a new website, which will be rolled out next week, as well as we've embraced a communication program called Parent Square. And that is a program that allows parents to have full interaction with schools and hear what's going on. We find that communication is paramount in the transparency of a school system so that you know what is happening and you can support it and participate. And that's so important in a school system and in a community. And Dartmouth really does that. And I think enhancing that with some of these tools would just complement what we do already. Mr. Kiley?
Thank you, Mr. Galashaw. So last but not least, we'll talk a little bit about budget and capital improvements, which is focus area number 4. So as you might imagine, in order to make this plan a success, we need to identify, advocate, and implement resources that support the plan and ultimately student achievement. So the initiatives in Focus Area 4 are to communicate and advocate for the instructional and operational needs of the district, and to do the same for the facility and capital improvement needs of the district. Some of the key measures of success include a budget reflecting the needs of the district, consistent and clear communication of the budget plan, a capital improvement plan reflecting the needs of the district, and the successful completion of capital improvement projects. Some of the key action steps are to communicate the budget plan to all stakeholders. So make sure that we clearly illustrate our needs to all of the folks who need to understand them. To implement and monitor the effectiveness of the budget plan. To develop a 10-year capital improvement plan reflecting our facility and capital needs. So right now we have annually done a 5-year capital improvement plan. So we are working to develop sort of the short, even though it's 10 years, it's kind of short-term needs of the district, and at the same time incorporate long-term planning for the town to look at replacement and renovation of our facilities moving forward. And other key action steps are to actually implement and complete capital improvement projects. We were pleased that at town meeting last week, we received funding for several projects, relatively small projects in the grand scheme of things, but all of those projects are important to keep maintain the continuity of use of the schools. That sort of summarizes focus area number 4.
And this next slide summarizes really the entire district strategic plan. I talked about the theory of action earlier, but what we're calling this is the dashboard for our strategic plan. And what you can expect to see as a community is that we'll have this published, and this is like our one-pager, so that anyone, regardless of whether you're an educator, a parent, a community member, a student, any member of the community can look at in this one place, at this one dashboard, and can see where our commitments are to our school community. And so we love this. You heard Mrs. Denisio talk about One Dartmouth, and I'm just going to touch on that again, because what we did at the beginning of the year, you can see here, this is I'm clicking, but yes. Another example of I thought I was advancing the slides. So anyway, here we are. We are Cushman School. So at the beginning of the school year for our convocation this year, one thing that we spent time doing is talking to our teachers, our ESPs, everybody really who works within our school district to talk about and really, I think, for them, exemplify the importance of the role that each of us plays in meeting the needs of our students. And so we are the Cushman School. So we gave out the first day, or within the first week of school, we gave out One Dartmouth t-shirts, and we asked our staffs to come together, not just for sort of this, just not only to be symbolic, but to talk about what the district's commitment is to really creating not only, again, the symbolism of One Dartmouth, but to move beyond that to really be able to exemplify in our actions and the way that we interact with one another that we truly are one school district, and that regardless of whether you start school at the Cushman School or here you are at, you're a student here at the DeMello School. Again, you're looking at photos of staff, whether you are, at the Potter School. Again, this is staff, and what we're saying to staff is every one of you is important to the school community in which you serve, and not just your own school, but the greater community at large. We have the Quinn School. And next we have, you can see the middle school, I think is next. And don't you love the photo of I love all the photos, but do you see how they're all so perfectly lined up at the middle school? I mean, there's something of beauty too. This is, to me, a coach who probably lined them all up like they were the football team. So you can see that they're perfectly situated in this photo. And then finally we have Dartmouth High School. But the point of me sharing these photos, of us sharing these photos with you, is that really this is our community of educators, and we're all part of one commitment to One Dartmouth. The other really important piece of this is by being One Dartmouth and sharing with you our strategic plan and making sure that this isn't something that we print, put in a binder, and put on a shelf, that this is something that is not just a living document, but it's living work. In one way that we've committed to the community and to all of you to continue to demonstrate to you our progress as we commit to certain our objectives, our initiatives, the action steps we're taking, and what the outcomes are of those action steps, is that we'll be reporting out to you as a community through our school committee meetings, and that we will be very intentional about tying the work that we're doing and we're reporting out on to our district strategic plan. So we're really proud of this work. That doesn't mean it's perfect. It doesn't mean that we've captured everything that needs to happen in the Dartmouth Public Schools in order to move us forward, and we fully expect that within 5 years we might need to make some adjustments here and there. But at the same time, we're very confident that we've captured the voices of the community and of the school community in particular, and that by engaging in this work and with the right supports to allow us to do this work, that Dartmouth will become what we envision, going back to our vision of unparalleled experiences for our students. And what do we mean by that? We mean second to none, because that's who we want to be in the Dartmouth Public Schools. We want to be a school system that is already, by the way, well respected, certainly, and we are always looking for ways to improve so that we really truly are the best of the best. And that's what we want for your children, that's what we want for this community, and that's what we're committed to as a team. And when I say team, it's not only the folks that are up here on this stage, although they are a wonderful team and they're such committed individuals. We have our principals, we have our assistant principals, we have our directors, and as you've seen, as I've gone through the last few slides, you're looking at the community of educators who are doing this work. So the work happens at the school level. It happens between the educators and the support staff and the students. That's where the real work is, and it's up to us to provide a plan and then the resources to support the folks who are out there in the field doing this work. So again, we thank you for coming out, and we're happy to answer questions if you have any. And again, I'm happy for those of folks that came out, and at the same time, I know that there are people who couldn't be here, and I hope that folks get to watch it from home, or those who are watching it from home, if they have any questions, they can send them our way. And so if anyone has any questions, again, we're happy to entertain them. I know we have a microphone out there, and you can just raise your hand, and we'll come right over to you. And if you don't have any questions, it means that we answered all your questions during our presentation. So thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Silva. Well, we have a microphone coming your way.
So obviously my concern and my area of passion is the budget. How much will the budget or the prospective budget that'll come from the town, how much will that affect the strategic plan and the implementation of that strategic plan? You know, we know we've been forcing the school department to spend in deficit for the past 2 years and looking like it's likely going to happen again for the third year. After that third year, if we don't fix things, how much will this strategic plan suffer as a result of not fully funding the school department?
So I'm going to talk, and I'm going to hand the microphone to Mr. Kiley, who's done so many budgets here in Dartmouth over the years and knows it inside and out, and he's certainly done a great job educating me as to the historical perspective of how the budget has been supported, the school department budget has been supported, and where we need to be moving forward. But for us, again, we spent time just today as a team talking about budget. We spend probably part of every day talking about budget. Is the budget critical to supporting this plan? Absolutely. You can see the curriculum piece is an area of focus for us. Mrs. Paveo mentioned to you, curriculum is not inexpensive. It is expensive, and what is also what needs to complement bringing in curriculum is the professional development that we need to provide to our educators in order to effectively implement that resource. And that doesn't mean one-off professional development, right? That means ongoing, job-embedded professional learning so that our educators, because whenever you implement a new curriculum, for those of folks, again, I'm doing EduSpeak, but new curriculum is what we teach, right? The curriculum is what we teach. And whenever you implement something that's new, our educators need time to grapple with it and to learn about it themselves. And so we need to provide that opportunity for them to do that. So that's a big piece. The other piece is the social-emotional learning piece. We know that we need to think about the way that we're staffing our buildings to make sure that that social-emotional learning is supported at the school level, and that does involve additional staffing. And how we staff our buildings is really important to us. And whenever, by the way, whenever you, and I've said this before in Dartmouth last year, whenever you have to lay off people, whenever you're eliminating positions, that has impact on climate and culture in a school district. There's impact to that. So we have to be always cognizant about that, and it's not just always, certainly it comes down to numbers, right? And we have to be able to financially support our school district, and we have to be responsible about that. But when we start looking at how we're taking away from schools, that's loss for schools. So that's important. So, Mr. Kiley, do you want to take some of that?
Sure. I mean, I couldn't agree more with what Dr. Saban-Maguire said. There's no possible way that we can accomplish the goals of this district strategic plan without a significant investment. So the community does invest in education and has been supportive of education. However, for instance, last year in the budget process, we reduced staff 9.2 full-time equivalent staff last year in the budget process. We have increased need of students, and if anybody followed the budget process last year, we presented information about the increasing needs of students and at the same time have declining staffing levels. So that tells you that's not going to be a way in which we can support kids on an ongoing basis. So we're working on the fiscal year 26 budget now. The schools are working on their school improvement plans that are based on this district strategic plan. So we will, in our budget process, express our needs, And hopefully, if we present that to the stakeholders in the community in a way that, is clear and understandable, we are hoping that we will have support. You may or may not be aware, but in fiscal year 25, which we're currently in, we're utilizing one-time reserves to support a significant number of staff. More than $800,000 worth of staffing costs are currently being supported by one-time reserves. Now, we have reserves that can continue to support staff, maybe for another year, but it's not a long-term solution. So we will be, as we implement the strategic plan, we will be asking the community for funding to help support education and to achieve that vision that's outlined in the plan.
So is there anybody else who has a question? So could you just advance the slide, Mr. Galashaw? Thank you, because I just wanted to take a minute, not only to thank the entire community, because I truly mean that. We had such great community input and responses to things like surveys. We had a forum here last year, followed by a focus group. We had focus groups at all of our elementary schools, at our middle school, at our high school. We had focus groups with students. So all of those folks who might not be named up here, but people know that they participated in some way and contributed to what we have now presented and again been supported by our school committee as our district strategic plan. And so you can see up here are the names of some of the folks that were involved in the actual, the 37 people, which by the way, we did work with Teaching Learning Alliance, who helped to facilitate our process. And they were so impressed that we had 37 people, because in most communities, there are far fewer people, apparently. And we didn't even think about that. We said, and at one point they said we had to stop inviting people. So, but to us it was, we wanted as many voices as we could have as part of the discussion and part of this critical planning process, and therefore the plan itself. So again, thank you so much. And One Dartmouth, we're all behind it, and we hope that you help us to support us in being sort of a cheerleader for the idea, not just the idea of One Dartmouth, but what it means to be One Dartmouth. So thank you again. And thank you to DCTV for coming out tonight and taping us. We really appreciate your support. That's what I mean by One Dartmouth. So thanks so much.